Okay, we are live. Hi, everybody. I hope everyone's doing well. Welcome back to Holy Humanist. Thank you so much for being here. Can somebody just let me know in the comments if you guys can hear me okay, if the audio is good? Because there's nothing worse than bad audio to begin with. So yeah, this is basically an impromptu stream, an impromptu live discussion to basically discuss what is in the title, Blasphemy Gone Absolutely Bonkers. And Thunderous is here with me today, who's very graciously decided that this is too serious and too ridiculous of an issue now, and we kind of couldn't let this go unnoticed without dedicating a bit of time to actually talk about what's happening here. So without further ado, some of you have already met Thunderous from our last interaction. His channel is also in the description. Please go and check it out. But yeah, I'd like to welcome Thunderous back. Thunderous, thank you.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Nuria. Thank you for having me on the show. And, I mentioned this article to you earlier on in the week, and we've decided to have a discussion on this because this seems the world and its depravity, and particularly the Muslim world, is going from one extreme to another. And I felt that this one warranted a discussion.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And you and I were just kind of talking off air as well about like the fact that what we're actually reading and what we're seeing here is almost, I mean, it's hard to even grasp the concept. And we will go into that. The fact that somebody can merely have a dream in which something happened and a woman brutally loses her life on the back of that. And as you were saying earlier as well, the fact that, you know, that there's few and far between articles and mainstream news outlets that actually publish this news. And, you know, this is probably happening in every corner of these kind of countries. And there's just so many incidents that would have passed us by and that we would never know about. Obviously, the mob justice in Pakistan is turning into like an absolute, you know, horrible cancerous phenomena. And we see that time and time again. But just to start off, let's share the news article with everybody and kind of have a quick. Oh, actually, sorry, just before that, Thunderous and I, for all of our future collaborations, have come up with a tagline for ourselves. I'm just going to share that with you quickly, and I would like Thunderous to explain why he thought this was very fitting. This is it, Thunderous.
That's it. That's Jo Dar Gaya, Samjo Mar Gaya. Now, for those who don't speak Urdu, I don't think we can transliterate it word for word, but it comes from probably Bollywood's most famous movie and probably in Bollywood's history, one of their most famous scenes. The actor is Amjad Khan. He plays a character by the name of Gabbar Singh. But it's what it says, Jo Dar Gaya, Samjo Mar Gaya. And what he's basically saying, those who are in fear, those who are fearful, think of them as already dead. And that's the thing, isn't it, with Islam? If you fear Islam, you're dead. And what we need to do is try and break that fear so that people are brave and unintimidated by Islam, irrespective of the barbaric nature of its mindset and manifesto. So we thought that on some occasions, this might be quite a fitting little motif for us to use on the collaborations that we have for each other. What do you think, Nuria?
Yeah, I'm all for it, absolutely. And the movie was a little bit before my time, but the amount I've heard, and this is one of the most famous lines out of Bollywood. So, and again, the implications behind it, especially when we talk about Islam, I think it's very, very fitting. So, yeah, hopefully this is the start. You guys will be seeing this every time we collab now, and hopefully we can just kind of keep giving those punches to Islam and making people realize there is absolutely nothing to fear. And once you roll over and you accept fear, then, you know, Islam will never, ever like lose its shackle and its hold on you, whether that's mentally or emotionally or actually physically as well. But okay, guys, thank you to everybody who's here and is joining us today. Thank you for letting me know that the audio is good. Norse mythology saying hello, Thunderous One. Hi, everybody who's in the chat. Sorry, it gets hard to kind of keep up with the comments. Okay, so let's get into this new story and let's have a talk about what's happened. So I'll just quickly read this story out for you guys. So this is actually from Al Jazeera. Pakistani teacher killed for alleged blasphemy. A teacher at all-girls religious school allegedly killed by female colleague and 2 students in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. A teacher at an all-girls religious school in Pakistan has been allegedly killed by a female colleague and 2 students who accused her of blasphemy, police say, the latest murder in the country related to the hugely sensitive issue. Few issues in Pakistan are as galvanizing as blasphemy, and even the slightest suggestion of an insult to Islam can supercharge protests and incite lynchings. The latest incident took place on Tuesday in Dera Ismail Khan in the country's northwestern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province that borders Afghanistan. Police said 2 students and a teacher ambushed Safura Bibi at the main gate of the school and attacked her with a knife and stick. She died after her throat was split, police officer Saghir Ahmed told AFP news agency. The main suspect is a colleague who planned the crime with 2 nieces studying at the Jamia Islamia Falahul Binat school, police said. The girls told police a relative had dreamed the dead woman had committed blasphemy against the Prophet Muhammad, officers said, adding they were also investigating if the main suspect, Umrah Aman, had a personal grudge. Azim Khan, another police official, confirmed the details. Known as madrasas, religious schools have long served as vital lifelines for millions of impoverished children in Pakistan, where social services are chronically underfunded. But critics say students can be brainwashed by hardline clerics who prize rote learning of the Quran over subjects such as maths and science. Rights groups say Pakistan's blasphemy laws are often wielded to settle personal vendettas. Last year, a Sri Lankan factory manager working in Pakistan was beaten to death and set ablaze by a mob after being accused of blasphemy. The Center for Social Justice, an independent group advocating for the rights of minorities, says at least 84 people were accused of committing blasphemy last year. Since 1990, at least 82 people have been murdered over alleged blasphemy in Pakistan, according to an Al Jazeera tally. 5 of those took place last year alone, including mob stoning and burning victims to death. Right, so obviously this is absolutely insane, and there's a lot of implications here to unpack. So Thunderous, I mean, we can go about this whichever way you'd like it. If you want to, I'd just like your kind of initial thoughts, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, I think first things first, the article, I'm glad you brought the Al Jazeera article up and not any other one, because it gives the story some good credibility, because when you're using certain sources, some people say, well, the reporting that may not be any good or it could be exaggerated, but you can't deny Al Jazeera, so I thank you for that.
No worries, I get you.
There was an interesting point in the article as well about the school actually helps with impoverished children. A normal state school is just there for educational purposes, maths, English, literature, so on and so forth, geography, sciences. Whereas a religious school will have a charity status about it. And therefore, if it's donating foods to the impoverished, it kind of like gives them the ability to act with impunity.
Yeah.
And because it's religious as well, you know, that it gives a further strength in its stand or its position, whichever direction it wants to go, particularly in Pakistan. You're noticing things like that in the Western world as well. I've put 2 documentaries up on my channel called Undercover Mosque, which kind of shows that there is a behavior in the Muslim community to act with impunity. Otherwise, you're referred to with misnomers, Franken words, or portmanteaus like Islamophobia or a racist. Well, not that a racist is, but Muslims will very easily use that. So I thought that article there brings out some very interesting points about how religion can act with impunity in the community.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. And so that's definitely one element. And another repeated element we see in this is the fact that behind these so-called convenient blasphemy cases, there is so many times a deeper level of where it's actually just a personal grudge or a vendetta, or, you know, I don't like this person, or this person, you know, peeved me off, or this person's impacting my business, or genuinely I consider this person unclean and not equal to me. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I have an opinion on that. I think sometimes, particularly when you're looking at the Muslim community, that they will use the fact that the blasphemy law was used as a grudge, in order to sort of actions, some kind of grudge that they have. So they use blasphemy as a pretext. I think that might be a construct of the media as well, and the news outlets, in order to lower the tone of the blasphemy law. The blasphemy law is real in Islam. Okay, but one has to remember that PR is basically a euphemism for lying to the public. That's what PR is. Public relations is a euphemism for lying to the public, and the media are very sensitive in how they can relay a crime and try and pacify the crowds or the readers towards it. It could well be a grudge, but women murdering women, that for me is also another addition. This is beyond a grudge. When I read the word grudge in several articles, it didn't seem to sit right with me. It could well be, and I could well be wrong, but history doesn't show females behaving with females like this. And we're on about an action in the school. I think there's a greater cause for this action to take place in the school as well. And one of them could well be putting fear in. Islam is on the back foot at the moment. There are too many spheres attacking Islam in academia, within the Quranic sources. We've already had several scholars for dollars admitting that there's a tsunami of apostasy in Islam. So I think sometimes a crime like this could be served as a warning that if you're thinking about believing in Islam, this is what happens to you. This is what you're up against. So it instills that fear factor. So the jo dal gaya, samjho mar gaya.
Yeah, indeed. And that is one thing that, I mean, for me, Islam and fear are so intertwined together. And this is just, as you said, one of the ways that can manifest itself for sure. And regardless of whether there's a personal grudge or not, the fact that in a country like Pakistan as well, you can weaponize a law such as blasphemy to almost take care. If there is a personal grudge, you are able, just by being a Muslim, by default, you're able to weaponize blasphemy against any other minority or any non-Muslim. And now, I mean, Muslims are putting blasphemy charges on other Muslims. So it is, it's absolutely like getting out of control in Pakistan. But on the back of what you were saying, Thunderous, I just wanted to read this quote that Imran Khan said, actually. He said, "I will not bow to anyone other than Allah, and will not allow my nation to do so either." So again, when notwithstanding everything that's happening currently in Pakistan with the government, but in general, when you have a leader like that at the helm of the country saying that kind of rhetoric and putting that out there as public sentiment, and so integral to like nationalism and Pakistani identity, it is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, you said Pakistan identity. The country was invented in 1947, so it's an identity that's barely 80 years old.
Yeah.
If people were born 81 or 82 years old, 81 or 82 years ago, they'd be Indian, not Pakistani, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So, this nationalism and trying to put some kind of religious pretext under nationalism is disgraceful and wrong. The two things are separate and should not be intertwined. But this is what you get. And all Imran Khan has done is reinforced the blasphemy laws by proxy. He's not said it, but he's said it, so to speak. What I thought was interesting as well is when you look at the actual dream, nobody is saying in any article, I don't know if you have, Naria, but nobody has said in any article what the dream actually consisted of.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to kind of find like deep dive into some of the details as well, because I did on the couple of different links that you sent me for those various news articles. It was all kind of vague in terms of what the dream was, and I was trying to figure out whether did she see the prophet, so to speak, in her dream approach her himself and say that this woman has committed blasphemy, or was this woman just there committing blasphemy in the dream, and therefore she woke up and thought she's blasphemed against the prophet, and we all know what the punishment for that is. And instead of even going about it in a legal process, which is just messed up in its own right, but to take matters into their own hands and plan this cold-blooded murder, to slit somebody's throat, I mean, there is a lot of malintent behind that, and a lot of planning and a lot of conviction. And that conviction, yeah, go ahead.
No, you carry on. I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, no, it's just scary because Ultra, thank you so much. G Block always. It's really scary because you realize that this conviction is a serious mental ailment that a lot of these Pakistani Muslims or conservative Muslims hold. And what I did get from this article, or a different one in one of the sources, that there was apparently some issues with, even now, if you turn towards one scholar of your own choosing and other people around you don't necessarily agree with that scholar and his interpretations of Islam, you are by default an enemy.
That is a very correct implication, because by definition there's only one truth, so everything else by implication is a lie then. Okay, so if there is only one true Islam, because see, when Muhammad was around there was only one true Islam, so by implication any other kind of variety of Islam would have been false. So if you carry that through historically, that's with any religion or any belief system, it doesn't matter what you believe, if you have a God belief or not. There's only one truth. There aren't 2, 3, 4 interpretations, and it's not subjective. There's only one ultimate reality in all of this, as far as the universe is concerned. So with Islam, there's only one Islamic perception that you can have. And the irony is this, while it's on my mind, is apostasy. Muhammad himself said that the first 3 generations of Islam were going to be the purest of Muslims to ever walk the planet. Yet what was the first war that happened when Muhammad died? The Ridda Wars, the wars of apostasy. So the first 3 generations of Islam went slaughtering each other as soon as the guy died. They didn't believe him any more than anybody else does today, that he's a true prophet. And they were the ones that saw him. So what does that tell you about Islam, in the way that you have the apostasy wars where people were forced by blood to stay as Muslims under Abu Bakr? What does that tell you? And are we not seeing some kind of reference to that now in the way that people are acting? Now, just before we came on as well, we were talking about the murders as far as blasphemy is concerned. But the press are very astute in what information they release to the public. We really don't know what actually is taking place as far as blasphemy is concerned in these countries, as to how many people are victims of these alleged blasphemies and how many murders have actually taken place as well. We hear about, so I think you said something about 85 since the year 1990, and there were 5 last year. Even if you was to go by that figure alone, 5 last year is an escalation.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a problem regardless. Yeah.
So already then, that's what we know of. And I think with social media today, these things are going to be harder to contain than what they were, say, since 1990, when social media was basically a telephone call.
Exactly. But even now, as we were saying just before we came live as well, the fact that, I mean, where is the outrage on this? Where is more of that media coverage? Why could this case have been so unthinkable, and almost like our brains can't even fathom what's happened here? Yet we are having to have a stream directly to make sure that this issue is kind of, that we shed some light on it, because a lot of the mainstream and a lot, like, this could be happening, as you said, left, right, and center, right? How many of these cases are going to go unnoticed? But I'm shocked, because I would expect, at least, I mean, there's biases even with the BBC and all of that, but when this is like, even on Sunday stream, on Sunday Scoop, when I do my streams with Haris Sultan, we try and find these news pieces that are not covered or not given the necessary coverage that they deserve, and the necessary outrage that would come as a result of it. So if this is what's happening on the ground in Pakistan, and then in addition to everything else we know, and like the situation with Priyantha Kumara, who was mob lynched and set alight, this is, Pakistan is turning into lawlessness, and Islam and blasphemy are the cancer that is driving this. And we're seeing this with there's no the crackdown now in terms of the education system. It's almost backtracking, and the focus now is to legitimize madrasa, and to give them official educational and school statuses. So where do you think that's gonna put science and history and maths and all these kind of subjects that should be being taught now to the younger generation that can actually grow up there and change the country for the better, and say we don't want this Islamic hold on us anymore, and we don't want to have so much of Sharia woven into our constitution.
But it's not. It's just going to leave them back in the Dark Ages, which is where they're now. Because when you consider Islam from its moments when Muhammad conceived it, or should I say, where Khadija conceived it and promoted Islam via Muhammad, because that's the truth according to their own sources. Many Muslims listening, come and shut up. And as I said, you and I are going to be doing a discussion on that sometime in the future. But it's going to leave the Muslim countries exactly where they are and where they've been for the past 1400 years, which is, if you don't mind saying, another show in itself about when you consider how societies move forward in the land of the kuffar. Okay, the things that have excelled in certain areas with NGOs and charities and such that the kuffar do, but Islam has produced nothing that the world benefits from.
Yeah.
Other than the oil, which is not something that they produce. It just happens to be that their countries are on the land where the greatest vats are to be found for it. But
yeah, because that area once upon a time was an ocean bed, so that's just the gift of geography. Yeah.
So can I just mention? Well, we keep talking about Pakistan, but Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, and other Muslim countries. It's not just Pakistan. These are problems around the world wherever Muslim lands exist or Muslim communities exist. And the reason why I want to make mention of this is how laws, if we go back to my discussion, or maybe you've discussed it before as well, how laws in other countries have had to change because the growing Muslim populations and communities in those countries. For instance, how do you define kidnapping now because of girls being taken to other countries to marry men that they don't want to marry? What about FGM, female genital mutilation? What about honor killings? These are things that they happen in Muslim countries, but they're happening in Western countries too as a direct product of Islamic immigration. So whilst we can say Pakistan, it's not just Pakistan. They're happening wherever a Muslim community manifests itself. These things, if not straight away, will soon be replicated. The hellhole they're running from is the very hellhole that they replicate in the Western world.
Precisely, exactly, and that's how the spillover effect happens in the West, and you see the exact same thing happening. But I completely agree with you. I think it's safe to say that wherever Islam is actually in power and has a dominant kind of position in society, in those Muslim majority countries, you will see the same carnage happening and the same problems. And you even see that in the kind of the small bubble communities that you kind of find across the UK, for example. You and I both know which areas we could go to see mini versions of, what happened 1400 years ago being kind of played out in the suburbs of Manchester or Rochdale or Bradford or places like that. But also, Thunderous, just kind of to move on to the dream aspect a little bit as well, because today, I know we are kind of short on time today, and I have to let you go in 20 minutes. So we did kind of talk about it off air as well, and I was just saying, like, it was ludicrous when I first saw that, and then when I was discussing it with you, I genuinely could not believe what I was reading, and just saying to you before as well, like, imagine the kind of the unique experience that somebody has as a dream, whether it's whatever version of their unconscious coming to life and playing out and, causing this very, very subjective dream in nature in which a third party you happen to see has absolutely no agency and no intent about no control over what they're doing in your dream. It's almost like, if you're sleeping next to your partner and you have a dream that they've cheated on you, and you wake up and then you actually treat them continuously and you act on the fact that, like, they have potentially cheated on you, which is just something that you've happened to see in your dream. So, and you were kind of saying the exact same thing, right? Like yeah.
I actually wrote what you said there. I actually wrote down because when I come across the article, I started writing things as my day was progressing. As a few days later, this, that, and the other question. I mean, one of the things I wanted to know is what did she dream of? Now, when people dream, fundamentally, it's all about imagery, and you might have a feeling attached to the image. Sometimes you don't remember the dialogue of what was said in the dream, but you do remember the image of what you saw.
Yeah.
So what did she see in this dream? Because there's no information out. So you have to go with the picture image, because there would have been a picture image. And it's a blasphemy against Muhammad, not Allah, not the Quran, not the Hadith, not Mecca. This is a blasphemy against Muhammad. Now, when you look at the Islamic sources, particularly the tafsirs, all you get is Muhammad was a very white man. So you don't know what Muhammad looks like. Now, I sent some hadiths over to yourself, right? If you look at the hadith, there are some that say he was seen Muhammad because shaitan cannot imitate Muhammad. Well, how would you know if that was Muhammad if you don't know what he looked like?
Yeah, exactly, precisely. And sorry, Thunderous, just to give you a little, just a quick piece of like an anecdote, a little anecdote basically on this subject. When I was a Muslim, and I truly had conviction, and I was going through something quite personal, and I just wanted to like, you know, reach out or feel like that God has my back kind of thing. I actually had a dream where I thought I saw the Prophet Muhammad in my dream. And he actually approached, but because of everything I had known about Islam and everything I was taught, he, I honestly, I'm not even kidding. In the dream, it was a silhouette with like the face. I had no face to look at either. I just imagined it as like this nur, like just sheer light, but a silhouette of a man almost. And just one that you're even told as much as to like, I mean, the fear or whatever's instilled in you is to not even have the audacity to look up at the Prophet and make eye contact. So even in that dream state, I almost was kind of like looking down and knowing that there was this vast presence, like this wise man just emanating like the light of God. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's that in itself, what you're describing there. But for me, I listened to that thinking, how would you separate that from, how do you know it wasn't shaitan that you saw there? Because it was a silhouette. You know, so as far as I'm concerned, whatever this dream this person had, how could they tell it was Muhammad? And then you have to start asking questions of where do you draw the line? And if you're willing to turn around and say that you had a dream of somebody committing blasphemy against Muhammad, but you don't know what it looked like, so you're going to presume that it was Muhammad. So you've assumed that this person was Muhammad. You have to assume it because there's no description as to what he looks like. So you've gone with what you think it is. Where do you draw the what if you dreamed yourself committing zina with Brad Pitt? Do you go to the imam and say, look, I committed zina with Brad Pitt in my dream, so you need to stone me to death? Where do you draw the line in all of this? Because if there's any truth in this, then 1.7 billion human beings need to go to their local imams and confess their sins. And I think we'll need to dig 1.7 billion graves overnight, because Muslims, we all dream bad things. Let's be honest, we all think things and dream things and even say things that we shouldn't, that if you look at Islam, they're punishable by death. So, you know, where's your cutoff point with what you dream then, if that's the case? And if you're so pious, you really need to go to the imam and confess your dream and what happens. Now, you mentioned something earlier on about she had the dream and then she took the actions in her own hand. Going through the Islamic sources from the Quran and Hadith, many people turn around and say that the order for the death has to come out by the local the imam or the caliph of the land or whatever. There's various interpretations. I do not believe that in the slightest. I think that is being used by Muslims to create some kind of like a committee for like hiding behind the blasphemy law. Because when Muhammad did not say this has to go to some kind of tribunal. He basically says, if a man leaves his religion, kill him.
Exactly.
Right. The best you can find is the one about the 3 days. Keep him for 3 days, and if they're still not going to come back to Islam, then kill him. So this, the local caliph or whatever, that for me is a total fabrication, if anybody says that, because you cannot find any of that in the Quran and Hadith. That's just the opinions of people later, but their opinions are already predicated on the Quran and Hadith in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. And sorry, just to so K-Dips was saying to that point you made earlier about how many, if everybody confessed, he's saying that's a great point, where they'd all be killed, no more Islam. So exactly, where do you draw this line, and what are the repercussions if this starts to actually take off as a thing? But that's quite worrying what you're saying about, because I've heard that as well, the 3 days to repent. But if genuinely, because I obviously know if there's an Islamic caliphate, then the caliph himself can give that order, as you said. But to think that there is no due process at all required, as you're saying, And we've seen that from the hadiths and Muhammad's time as well, and the way that punishment is kind of dished out.
The riddle was, riddle was, there was no due process. It was, they live in Islam, kill them.
Yeah, exactly. And Kiko was saying, yeah, you mean nightmare when I was talking about my dream. Yes, you're right. It most likely was probably a nightmare thinking about it now. But yeah, it's funny how your brain plays tricks on you in that moment. But as Thunderous was saying, how do I know that wasn't Shaitan or Satan? That's very true. And speaking of that, actually, Thunderous, you sent a good couple of hadiths over. If you wanted to read a couple of them, and we can just kind of tie that into the case with what happened with this woman, and just see the various Islamic kind of takes on dreams.
Yeah, so the first one is from Sunan ibn Majah 393. I'll tell you what, I'll just tell you which ones. I won't go into the book and the location, because all people need to do is go to sunnah.com and they can read it. So all you've got to do is type dreams in. So when you look at, say, Sunan ibn Majah, it says that it was narrated from Jabir. There's your code, right? It was narrated. He's not saying it. He's not agreeing with it. He's just saying, this is what somebody else said to me. He doesn't believe it any more than the other guy probably didn't. It was narrated from Jabir that the messenger of Allah said, if any one of you has a bad dream, he should not tell people about how Satan played with him in his dream. So this would be a bad dream, yeah? It was blasphemy. Yeah. But this person's contradicted the hadith, because they've told people and they've made them co-conspirators in the crime.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. You're completely right. Yeah, he should not tell people about how Satan. Exactly. Telling people is, again, on the back of a bad dream, then. That word should never have been shared amongst anybody. You're right.
Then there's Abu Huraira. Allah's messenger said, the good dream of a faithful believer is part of the 46 parts of prophetism. Okay, so was this prophetic then? Well, it must have been prophetic to a certain extent, because you carried it out. Yeah. So this must have been by some kind of principle or implication. This person's carried out a prophetic pattern. Then you got the one by Abu Qatada, says, whoever sees me in a dream, then indeed he has seen the truth. Well, how would you know what Muhammad looked like if he appeared to you in a dream? How can you tell the difference?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Then you got Abu Salama. I used to see a dream which made me sick till I heard Abu Qatada say, I used to see a dream which would make me sick till I heard the Prophet saying, a good dream is from Allah. So if any one of you saw a dream which he liked, he should not tell anybody except the one whom he loves. And if you saw a dream which he disliked, then you should seek refuge with Allah from its evil and from the evil of Satan, and spit 3 times. I mean, make sure it's good spit as well, because you don't want it landing on your shoulder.
It's got to be 3 as well.
It's got to be 3, yeah. Everything that ends in an odd, doesn't it? And should not tell anybody about it. Well, whatever way you want to look at that, good dream or bad dream, they've contradicted it.
Exactly. Right. So going by their own sources as well, that should not have happened.
Right, absolutely. Then you got narrated by Anas. The Prophet said, I know I'm mispronouncing it, but I like to do a little bit of comedy.
It's got to be done sometimes.
Because it is a lot of excrement anyway. The Prophet said, whoever has seen me in a dream, then no doubt he has seen me, for Satan cannot imitate my shape.
Oh, there's your answer, Thunderous. That's why it had to have been the Prophet that I saw.
Satan, there you go. You see, Satan cannot imitate my shape. This has implications that I'm doing I'm preparing another talk about, in my opinion, the Quran, when it uses the term we, is actually a 50-50 partnership between Allah and Muhammad. There is, I'm going to tie it in as irrefutable, but I'm working on that at the moment. And this fits in there. Satan can't imitate my shape. And then the last one is by Ibn Umar. Allah's messenger said, the worst lie is that a person claims to have seen a dream which he has not seen.
So
if this was a mistake, by implication, that would be a lie.
Exactly. And that's a sin, completely going against the hadith and the spirit of lying in Islam.
Yes.
So good dreams are from Allah. Bad dreams are from Satan. You spit 3 times, you don't tell anybody about it, and you seek refuge with Allah from Satan. Is that correct, Thunderous?
That is correct.
Okay. So regardless of what's happened here, by mainstream Sunni scripture, this woman has actually gone against Islam by taking on this murder by herself with these two other schoolgirls complicit.
That's what you've just said, they're complicit. So not only is this person subjectively had a dream which contradicts the hadith, all right, she's also got involved. Two other human beings are now going to be as a principle of accessory before the fact, because it's a conspiracy. So it's an accessory before the fact for first-degree murder.
Exactly.
And this is women. Now, you expect this kind of mob behavior by men. And had it been a man or men doing this, I would have still been incensed, but not to the level I am at the moment. It's because it's involved females now. And I'm beginning to think that one of the reasons is, as I said, mentioned earlier on, this is to tie Islam down, because it's running away like a mad camel at the minute. And there are so many areas of Islam that are slowly being fractured and broken, that fear is the only way to keep it tied together now.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yeah, just to touch on your point as well, I think, as you said, like, I mean, we are used to seeing these kind of mob lynchings and like mob justice play out. But I think this article just, as you said, it hit a whole lot deeper, because, I mean, first of all, the brutal manner in which they went about killing this woman, with probably, I mean, it's slitting a woman's throat, and this is being done by another woman and two younger women. It's just not something you usually expect, and it's not something I would even. This is the first time I've come across a case like this, where it's literally Pakistani women turning on each other, and this brutally. And I think it's just reflective of what you're saying as well. The fact that it is all falling apart from the seams, and even the kind of polarization in Pakistan now, and these kind of divides and the infighting and the sectarianism and trying to find your own scholar who you think is right, and then they're all kind of going up against each other. It is causing absolute pandemonium. But again, these are like innocent. I say innocent because this was she died because of what somebody else dreamed about her. I sound ridiculous even saying it, but this is literally what we're dealing with here. So
it's almost very much like there was a Tom Cruise movie many years ago, Minority Report. It's just coming to my mind now, where people were trying to stop crime. So you had certain people in the police force that were predicting crimes that had not yet been committed, and were arresting them on for crimes they hadn't committed just yet. Something like that. We're now living in a world where science fiction is rapidly becoming science fact. And the irony is it's Islam in this level that's really brought it forward to the mainstream now. I don't, this has perhaps happened before maybe, but it's certainly the first time I've come across it in the media.
Yeah. No, and also I just wanted to, somebody made a very good point here that I think we can kind of start wrapping it up on, about blasphemy. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull it up. But essentially the point was that blasphemy is a victimless crime. And I think the reason that we wanted to talk about this today as well is, first of all, in this day and age, to consider these countries that Thunderous was, rightly mentioning, where Islam is at play and they have blasphemy laws. First of all, this is a thought crime. You are being punished for a thought crime. This now, what we're seeing has happened, is taking that a whole nother step further and punishing somebody for something that your unconscious mind concocted, but you've associated such like rigor and conviction behind it that this is the kind of like, this is what you think is a logical follow-on step from having a dream about somebody who you think blasphemes. So it's absolutely ridiculous that in 2022 we still have blasphemy laws in place, but now when you're starting to kill people over what people are seeing in their dreams, I mean, this is absolutely getting out of hand, and it's high time that we keep drumming this point home, and we keep talking about it in the West as well, and we don't let stories like this just kind of get brushed under the carpet and people move on to the next thing or the next new hashtag or whatever. We have to stop and say, kind of call out this behavior. And as you said, Islam is falling from every single angle, but to be able to keep showing the damage and the destruction that it leaves in its path. This is why you and I are having this conversation, Thunderous.
The problem we have with society today is because it is, as a man that's 54 years old, I remember how society was in the past, and I'm watching the changes. Once upon a time, this would have been headline news for the first, say, 3 or 4 days, front headline news nationally in this country. It barely gets a mention. And I'm talking about even crimes in this country barely get a mention, which have been headline news many years ago. If there are any members of your audience that are over 45 years old, that are hopefully they'll put a point in there and agree that that's how this country used to be. But now, big crimes they barely make local news now. So to a certain degree, it does not surprise me that it goes out there. Another reason could be because they don't want the idea of Islam being more maligned than it already is, and therefore it alienates the Islamic community even further. But the thing is, the problem with the Islamic community is they've alienated themselves, which is why I wanted to go for my finish point was with reference to the Borg. Now, when writers are writing things in science fiction or any other kind of literature, sometimes they have to look at the past for a motivation or an inspiration. And I think in the Star Trek The Next Generation, the idea of their super enemy, the Borg, Islam must have motivated or given some kind of basis for creating this alien enemy of the Federation. They have a cube-shaped box. They have a hive mentality. Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated. Death is irrelevant. We see all the traits of Star Trek Borg encapsulated in Islam. You know, death is irrelevant and resistance is futile. Just those 2 points alone. Look what's happened in Pakistan. Resistance is futile and death is irrelevant. Every other religion values life. Islam doesn't. Death is irrelevant. And they have a hive mentality. Insult Muhammad. And this is the other thing as well. You can insult Allah. You can say what you like about Allah. Nobody bats an eyelid. You mention Muhammad, blood's got to be spilt. And this was a dream about Muhammad, and it cost somebody their lives. That family is now distraught. So they've lost their daughter. This happened in a madrasa. What are those children going to be learning about what you say about Muhammad? Where does it end when the children have now know their teacher was, or some woman was murdered at the gates of the school? What does that say?
Exactly. Oh, I think you summed it up beautifully there, Thunderous. Thank you. And I say this point as well quite often, that it's interesting that Muhammad is more well guarded and well protected than Allah is. And in Pakistan, that's actually the case. The punishment for blaspheming against Muhammad is actually what's codified. People aren't really too bothered about Allah, but as you said, Thunderous, the second you bring Muhammad into the equation, it's death is waiting for you, whether it's in the hands of mob violence or the hands of the authority that kind of just, either way, they don't care, because when it's something as sensitive and something as hardline as insulting the Prophet, they're both on the same side ultimately. But what I also kind of wanted to, this was Dean Kruger's comment, which I totally agree with. Blasphemy does not offend any gods. It's a victimless crime. That it offends the fan club is rather telling. Exactly. I completely agree with that. And just to kind of wrap up with some final comments as well, K-Dips was saying, so when and where are you supposed to spit 3 times while you're still in your bed? As if you don't spit 3 times at the right time, it might not work. What sort of rubbish is that?
Well, I don't know what he's got in his mind. It depends on the girl with us to whether she spits or not.
Yeah. So again, thought police, that's it. And that's what we've got to talk. We've got to speak up and speak against this, because Thunderous, just as a final thing as well, I wanted to kind of just mention, I'm sure you're aware of like the Bately Grammar School incident, but again, this isn't just, these aren't just incidents that we're seeing that play out in Muslim majority countries. As Thunderous mentioned, the kind of spillover into the West, for example, when you see this play out now in English grammar schools, when the teacher has gone into hiding and must stay in hiding, and the UK's own policymakers, his own MP, is afraid to speak up on his behalf because they will be the next to receive death threats. And this is a worrying trend we're seeing in the UK as well now. Obviously, we can go into this at like length in a different stream. But I just saw before we did this stream as well that another teacher, a woman in this country, was suspended because she brought a mug into school which had Jesus and Muhammad, both of them, on the mug. But it was the cartoon of Muhammad being on that mug that caused her to be suspended in 2022 in England. So this is getting out of hand wherever you look at it, to be honest. And that's why we are having to have these discussions constantly. Thank you, everybody. NR Passion, thank you so much for your super chat. I really, really appreciate it. Milan Sonon, sorry if I have not pronounced that correctly. Welcome to Holy Humanist. Thank you so much for becoming a member. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it here. And thank you so much for tuning in. And Norse Mythology, thank you so much for your super sticker and your continuous support. I really, really, truly do appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. The Super Awesome Films, thank you so much as well for your super sticker. Milan Sonon, thank you again. Thank you, thank you. Welcome to the Holy Humanist family. And most of all, thank you, Thunderous. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your day to kind of stop and give us both a moment of pause, but hopefully people as well a moment of pause to realize how, you know, serious this issue is. And Ultra, thank you so much again for your super sticker. I really appreciate the support, guys and girls, and whoever's watching. Zagros, thank you so much for stopping by. Secular Spirit was also in the house. Thank you for stopping by. And I will see you all a little bit later for Sunday Scoop. But in the meantime, Thunderous, I will let you go. Thank you so much. And let's do this again soon because Jo Dar Gaya.
Samjo Mar Gaya.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Thunderous. Bye.
Bye.